Okay, this is my fundraising gone awry presentation. I have a pretty awkward little setup here. I would be doing this presentation obviously a lot different if I was in front of people, but I'm going to be incorporating the slideshow, stepping back and sort of explaining some of my thoughts as I was looking through this assignment. But without further ado, we're going to get this going. So my presentation, I've titled it Moving from Fundraising to Student Enterprise. So this is sort of a creative way to fundraise that I hope incorporates classroom instruction time, is relevant to the TEKS, which in the state of Texas, those are the student aligned learning objectives, and while also raising funds and addressing some shortcomings. So what we want to do is address these fundraising inequities through our community-based fundraising while also doing some student-centered initiatives. So what is the problem? The problem that was outlined in the prompt for this presentation is actually a problem that I have encountered in real life with some of the school districts that I've worked at in the past, and that is that we are just from a low-income area, and so fundraising can be quite challenging because while the community really does want to support the school system, they just don't necessarily have the needs to do so. So our problem is that what has happened in the prompt is we are at a technology shortage for our campus. One of the elementary school campuses was able to successfully fundraise through their PTO, and they were able to get the funds necessary to get new technology, and so but two campuses are unable, and this creates an inequity between the campuses because one campus is receiving better instruction or perceived better instruction because of the technology. And so our goal is to fundraise our own without taking from the budget that the one elementary school was able to get. And so I want to propose how we would do that. So, guiding principles. We want to be able to push equity over equality. The idea here is we can't treat everything equally because we may not be meeting people where they're at. So the visual here, oftentimes, especially in the classroom, and I think it's applicable to fundraising as well, is if you have a level fence and you just provide the same size boxes for kids to stand on or for people to stand on to look over the fence, a shorter person may need a taller box, a taller person may need a shorter box, some people may need a box at all to look over the fence. And so how can we address equity over equality in fundraising while also creating a sustainable model, getting the community involved because that want is probably there. And in fact, in a lot of lower income places, the community involvement, it's one thing that they really want to get behind because if there's not a lot going in the community, the school is a big pull. And so they do want to, they just want to know how they can and how it can fit with them. Having students own it and then also having multiple revenue streams. And so I have an idea here that I think would address all that, and I'll get into that here in just a second. Sorry for the background noise. We've got kids in the house and you know how that goes. Okay. So why do traditional fundraising options often fail? So not only do you have expensive products that low-income communities can't be involved in, but also what I've seen in the past is a lot of donation models. Unless somebody has something that they can take home from their fundraiser, oftentimes it doesn't motivate people to actually do that fundraising. And so a strong PTO, a strong PTA obviously goes a long way when it comes to fundraising, and oftentimes those programs that raise the most funds have the strongest PTOs. When you rely on just monetary donations alone, without any sort of reward back, whether it's a food item or a chance to win something, people don't have the same buy-in as they do otherwise. And so they have the donation fatigue, everybody's asking for something, you'll have limited participation, and then that inequity of wealthier people have the money and disposable income to give away in donations and other people don't. Oftentimes those traditional fundraising options will fail for those reasons. So I wanted to tell a story about my most successful fundraiser. Okay, so the smoker story. What happened was we had one 50-gallon barrel donated to the welding program, and that's what sparked us on this journey of being able to marry instruction, donated products, and be able to generate funds all at the same time. So a parent from a scrapyard donated a barrel because his son was interested in making a smoker. Now he just wanted to learn the skills in making the smoker. They didn't want to actually take the smoker home. And so we just made a regular barbecue indirect heat smoker. You cut the barrel open, do some welding, put some legs on there. These are all materials that were either purchased by the school or donated by a scrapyard. So they cost us, the actual FFA program or ag program, they cost us nothing. But we were able to build it into something that was great, and it met all the criteria of the TEKS. We were able to use classroom time to do it, so we didn't have to ask anybody to donate man hours outside of, the regular 9 to 5. And we were able to build this amazing thing essentially completely for free, or otherwise using products that would have been used for products otherwise because the school purchased it. And then we were able to then raffle that item off, selling $5 tickets a piece to win this awesome, amazing smoker that the kids built. It had their own personal touch to it, and then they would win that in the end. And so we ended up selling, thousands of tickets that were just at $5 a piece, because that was another thing, is being able to do a low ticket cost item. We could say, buy as many tickets for as many chances as you'd like. And it just it just ties everything back into a circle, And so the idea is that these welding tickets, or the welding students, built the smoker and they put their own work and time into it. We were able to sell those raffle tickets. There was no significant cost to us. Labor was obviously just through the students and through instruction time, where we were able to meet the T criteria there. And then also it just created community excitement as well. And it had that added educational value. So what if we implored all CTE programs to do the same thing, if we wanted to do a big campus-wide or even district-wide fundraiser? So some examples might include the welding students, like I said, made smoker pits. The construction classes did dog houses or bird houses or something. There's this material that's sitting there that we need to use to create projects anyways. The school's already purchased it. We might as well use those products, weave in the TEKS, be teaching kids good skills, and then also creating products that can be raffled off later. They could be raffled off, or they could even just be sold straight up. We made this doghouse. We're selling it for $100. All the money and the proceeds go back to the campus that we're using to increase technology, get new facilities, whatever. The CTE courses are there to teach these trade skills to the kids, and oftentimes, at least at the school districts that I've come from, we were teaching those skills, building those products, and then when the projects were done, we're either just holding them as examples, some end up in the trash, some end up home as gifts, and they weren't always big things, but it's just like, we have them anyways, we might as well use them. Other examples could include floral design, could do floral arrangements. Culinary could make specialty cakes, or the cakes that are realistic cakes, big event cakes. They could do pies, any sort of baked goods. Ag could do plant cells, art could do commissioned artwork. You kind of get the idea. We could get every CTE organization involved. So the educational benefits of this is not only could we teach the trade that is required to make these sorts of things, so we're teaching kids how to weld correctly, kids how to measure and cut wood for dog houses, how to blend things in art, how to pair certain flowers together in floral design, but we can also just loop them in on the entire thing. Hey, we are trying to increase our budget for technology by this amount of thousands of dollars so that we can buy this brand of technology, and this is how much money that we need to do it. So how many dog houses do we need to sell? Obviously we can't pay the students, but you can even take it a bit further and wrapping in all those TEKS to it and saying, because there are always employability skills for all of these CTE courses, and so anything that's teaching someone budgeting, workflow, how you might pay employees. And so in the future, I feel like some of these kids, they don't have a grasp of, yeah, I could sell something, but then how much do I have to pay my employees? How much, like all that is just lessons that we could wrap into this whole product or project by just letting them be involved. So budgeting, project managing, marketing, the customer service, when we're having students face client or the community directly, they can learn those skills about how you might talk someone into buying a $5 raffle ticket, or how you might talk them into buying your doghouse or birdhouse, how you would persuade them. Entrepreneurship and workforce readiness, all these things can be taught while we're doing this. So I understand that for this project, my experience has been within high school, and so I know that within the project it was more elementary school focused, so I did come up with some adaptations for that. Some things could include student created artwork, a garden project that the kids are doing, some of these things. I understand that when we're teaching, my focus has been on like CTE and trade skills, and a lot of that's missed in elementary school. They still have the skills to be able to weld, for example. But there are some things that you can adapt for an elementary school that create some of the same concepts, but with just a little lower quality product, just purely because of age. So I think throughout all this, a big main focus of the elementary or the school that I'm a part of, especially as we're following the example of the elementary school that was able to create a lot of funding, is we need to see what was working with them. So obviously their PTO was able to raise these funds. So I would be addressing the superintendent by saying we need to look at our PTO and figure out what key parents do we need to ask to step up so that we can strengthen our program, so that we can create some of the same funds for us as well. I would also be looking towards the principal of that other campus and saying, hey, what did you do that worked? What makes your PTO so strong? Because we are trying to emulate something that you're doing, and we understand that if we strengthen our PTO, we'll also be able to do some of these same fundraising things. So we would want to get some of the donations from the PTO for some products that we would want to sell, because oftentimes, like that was a dad that donated that barrel that got us going on the smoker for the first time. So I was thinking that a lot of parents that want to be involved in the school or just community members in general, they have products and things and tax write-offs that they're like willing to send into the school if they know it's going to the right thing. And we had so much success sending our students out into the community, out to these businesses to ask them, hey, is there anything that you would like to donate? Whether it's not money or supplies or something, and it just teaches the kids another one of those soft skills of just being able to talk to community members, business members, parents, and being able to ask, gaining that skill of asking them for things that they can donate. It helps build the business partnerships, increase our community participation, and promote different activities that we're doing. And so community partnerships, like I mentioned before, often a lot of low-income communities, the school is such a big deal for them that they really do want to help, they just don't know how. And if you go knocking on the door and you say, hey, would you be willing to donate $10, $20 because we're looking to increase our community or increase our technology at our school, if that changes to, hey, we have this product that we are raffling off that the students made, they put a lot of hard work into it, for just $5 that can buy you a raffle ticket. Depending on on the actual technology and budget needs, you can even lower that down to $1 for $1. Buy 5 raffle tickets for $1 each, and you'll get $5 worth of raffle tickets, depending on how much you actually need. Or those community involvements could be, hey, we're looking for items that can either be refurbished, because we have CTE kids that are willing to put in the work to refurbish those, or just materials wise, if you don't have $20 to donate, maybe you have some wood that you can donate to the CTE program for us to build these dog houses. Maybe you have some spare metal, maybe you have some spare art supplies, or something, just thinking along those, baking materials, some flour that you've been sitting on that we can use to then go out. Again, that's just costing the school nothing, and so we're able to then make something out of those things. And someone may be more willing to donate things like that than it is to their regular hard-earned dollar. So you could go to other potential partners like churches, small businesses around the community, A lot of those times they have a lot of homegrown community feel as well. And so you can leverage a lot of those partnerships. Alumni, civic organizations, you kind of get the drift, the gist. The second thing that I wanted to, so I just want to put like a real quick pin in the student enterprise fundraising side of things, just to address that in my auxiliary services interviews that I've been doing over the last couple days, I've noticed a very common theme that grants are just being underutilized in general. And so when it comes to our technology, I want to just dedicate a little bit of time to this, because I think the assumption in the assignment is that this part's already done. But one of the things that I've gained from these interviews is just calling districts that are nearby, whether they're healthy, unhealthy, or whatever, they're just different experience, and saying, hey, what grants and what funding is out there that you've taken advantage of that we may not be? There was one particular with the safety officer that I met with in our district. She was saying that it just took a couple of phone calls to local or surrounding districts for her to realize that there was not thousands, but millions of dollars that were being left on the table just because the old adage, you don't know what you don't know. The previous person, they didn't know that these grants and funding were out there, and I'm sure they were well intended. I'm sure they did all the research that they could, but it just took a couple phone calls to be like, hey, what are you doing? Similar to asking the elementary school before, what are you doing with your PTO that's working, because we want to emulate that. It's the same concept with these grants and other funding. So I would just want to make sure that I exhaust all those things. I want to create a grant team to make sure that nothing's missed. So not just principals and campus admin and teachers from my district, but parents and other things as well. Just making sure that we're keeping a pulse on what grants are out there, what we're missing, and what money we're leaving on the table. We could look at not just technology grant sources, but when it comes to other facilities, when it comes to expanding library, when it comes to even curriculum writing, or just like teacher funding, all these things, we want to make sure that we're getting that done. So to summarize that section, I just want to make sure that I've exhausted all my grant research that I can do before I move on. And like I said, learning from other school districts as well, making sure, because they are doing things, and we want to make sure that we're all doing the same thing. Okay, so from a sustainability standpoint, I really like the idea of the student enterprise, because when you start at one time, then what happens is in the first year, you're just kind of gaining donations, and you're getting this idea going that students can create good products that tie back into the school. And then the next year, we should be able to do those same products and then more. So for example, when I had the smoker situation, that was the welding team that did that. Well, when that program was able to see the success of what we did with that one smoker, we then did 2 smokers the year after. And then that's when we pulled in floral design to be doing these big grand bouquets of things that they could then raffle off. That's when we brought culinary in to start making realistic cakes that they could then raffle off as well, or just sell straight up to do that. That's when we brought in construction, and they actually created a mini house, one of those little it just goes on a little trailer that you can pull behind, and it's just like a little 1-bedroom, very efficient home. But they were able to learn framing, roof work, window installation, door installation. These kids were able to learn so many different skills using materials that were purchased by the school, and then raffle that off into something that really blessed a community member and raised a lot of funds for them. So I think this is just something that writes itself when it comes to year after year, just expanding, getting more programs involved. When you do 1 smoker, you do 2, 3 the next year, just whatever you can to expand this. And then it's something that the community looks forward to every year. And we can even follow up with the previous winners and say, like, what are you doing with your smoker now? And just trying to get everybody involved throughout that whole process. Okay, the biggest benefit for students that I haven't really even touched on, so let's not even talk about, we've already touched on how we can dedicate classroom time to this. So this benefits the teacher because they're able to incorporate the fundraiser into their classroom instruction. So we're teaching bell to bell because we're teaching actual skills that then we can go forward and use in this fundraiser. It teaches the kids budgeting. We're getting them involved in the whole thing. You're making the smoker, but you need to know what the smoker does. And the responsibility bullet at the very top of this, not only does it loop them into it, but what I'm thinking that it could do, and I haven't really seen this proven yet, but I'll give an example of how I have seen it proven, is if we loop in the responsibility of the kid and the blood, sweat, and tears that they poured into making that smoker that bought them the smart board that then went in their classroom later, they may take a moment to appreciate what it took to get that smart board, and then they may hold that smart board in a little bit more regard than they would have if they just got it for free and they didn't see the how at all. Now, I think that's a big... in life that happens, a homeowner might be a little bit more tentative and protective of the things that they have versus someone that's just renting an apartment because it's not theirs, they don't own it. And I think it'd be asking a lot of kids this day of age to be able to marry the two, understanding that the work I did got them the thing that they did, so I'm going to treat it better. But what I have seen is in my behavioral interventionist and specialist job, I've taken as sort of like an alternative punishment sort of system, I've taken kids out to just look bigger than themselves and kind of focus on the entire campus of a beautification standpoint and just pick up trash. Car rider line, parking lot, all we're doing is we're just taking 20-30 minutes to kind of get them out of ISS, relieve that teacher, and then also pour them back into the campus. And what I've found is, it did take myself telling them this, but I'm like, hey, next time your fellow friend throws a piece of trash on the ground, not thinking about it, or drops one out of their hand, or you go to not miss a trash can, think, I had to pick that up last time, and I didn't like having to pick that up. And so you might nudge your friend in that instance and say, hey, pick that up and put it in a trash can. Someone else has to pick that up. In fact, it might be me. The next time I'm in ISS and the ISS teacher calls Mr. V to come by and take me around the campus and pick up trash, that might be me picking up your Uncrustables wrapper or your mechanical pencil that you smashed into the ground. So just take a second to throw it in the trash can because I don't want to pick it up for you. And I'm thinking that same concept may happen in this student enterprise, where we link for them the work that they put into their project and then what we're able to buy with those funds. There may be a little bit of appreciation for the thing on the back end if they do it. And then, of course, we give them the ownership, the entrepreneurship, and the financial literacy to survive in life. But yeah, they're more likely to value that technology when they understand the effort that was required for them to get it. So my recommendation to the superintendent would be to start some sort of enterprise program like this, present the model, show things that have worked, try to already get some community partnership in, things that people that are willing to donate products for us to do this. And then also create that grant acquisition team. Make sure that I am putting together my PTO, my PTA, and that they are strong. In conclusion, I think that fundraising inequities are there, and I think for low-income communities, there are a lot of things that we can do. The biggest takeaway that I have from this is if we can dedicate classroom time and not ask too much of other people, and we can get the community involved, especially in a community that really values the school, then we can marry classroom instruction, student responsibility, teaching lifelong skills, while also raising funds that everybody wins. The one thing that I will say as a pushback to this is I'm not the most familiar with regulations and budgets to know I may have just presented this to you and it be completely illegal. Like to use school funds to then sell and then put it back into the school program. I'm not sure how that works. In my mind, it makes sense that we could use either donated items or school purchase items that will be used for instruction anyways to then be sold and put right back into the school. It's not like we're selling them and putting it in our own pocket. It's all going back to the fundraiser. But you would also want to make sure that a lot of that's documented and make sure it's the right thing. But in conclusion, I think that this is a really good way to marry student enterprise and fundraising together in a community that may not be able to purchase a big ticket item, but also they can gain big ticket things that loop in student responsibility and activity as well. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you allowing me to give this presentation to you, and I hope that you consider it. Thanks.